going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Meltdown here with me, Llama77, and that guy over there, your boy Q. We're going to be talking all things esports here today. But Q, I got to ask you, how you doing today?
Oh, living the dream, brother. It's the middle of the week when we're recording this thing. And you know what? It's getting pretty busy here now. We've got a lot to talk about, especially because we missed last week. So we got a couple things to catch up on as well. Otherwise, not doing too bad, man. Easter's right around the corner. How you been?
Been really good. We both been busy. Been a lot of fun, catching up with all this esports stuff. And like you said, so much esports going on. It's a great time to be an esports fan because there are so many leagues, so many finals, so many in-person events that are going to be happening as well. So, like you said, did miss last week. Unfortunately, did have some bug going around the Frost office here, but now we're back.
We're back and better than ever, man. And you know what? I feel like there's going to be people who are like, we've talked about this enough, but we have to talk about it after we missed it, right? With ALGS regional finals for NA, having to get postponed because of Destroyer 2007.
That guy.
A kid
Oh,
literally causing havoc, wreaking havoc on ALGS. I feel like there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to try and keep this brief because I do know it's been a little bit and I really do want to kind of more focus ahead towards the ALGS land, but I was wondering, Llama.
yeah.
I was kind of trying to think back, and luckily we haven't had very many cheating scandals when it comes to esports over the years. But I don't know if I can think of one that was bigger than this, especially because normally it's like a cheating scandal where it's like how they get caught with walls
Yeah.
online or something like that, and it's them cheating for themselves. This is just the fact that it's some kid looking to prove a point that it's injecting hacks into other people's PCs. This is crazy.
It is, and I think it's, to your point, one of the bigger cheating scandals of esports of all time. That, like you said, there's always been scenarios where it's like, okay, there's a CS:GO player, there's a COD player that's like, oh, wall hacking online, and then they get invited to LAN, and then they're trash, they lose, and then like they go and get investigated and find that there's hacks on it. So I think it's kind of interesting that I look at it from the perspective of you give a random kid 75,000 viewers and like of course they're going to do that, but like it does question like the stability of the servers or maybe the back end of these two players. Maybe it was the players' fault because they still haven't fully investigated.
I don't know, man. For me, when you see like the menu that pops up, it seems like it was very much. Believe actually Destroyer 2009 has talked on it, like has literally said just doing it for fun, which I mean, I don't know if I'd be pushing it that far. I do
Yeah.
gotta say though, the big thing for me is like we've seen it happen once, and it literally like they had to postpone regional finals. People were wondering if they were going to have to postpone LAN, and I know for some people they think that that's like an easy fix, but I don't know if people realize how booking these venues works. Like that's not exactly something where you're just like, hey, bro, we're just going to run it back, the weekend after. If you're cool with that, all right, cool, be the weekend after. Like that's not really a necessary solution that can come out. But what happens if this happens again at some point? I think that's maybe part of the reason we saw the original resolution that came apart or came about being what they did. But it's funny after all of the recent kind of back and forth. Well, I shouldn't say funny because it's not funny. It's ironic timing after we've seen some of the back and forth online between Hideouts and his normal haters, kind of talking about how well the anti-cheat team is doing. Apparently not.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Once again, I know I saw the interview with the one kind of isolated developer that was kind of like investigating. He was like, at this point, like the developers of Apex and Hideout's team, they just like can't say anything because like if they do
Mhm.
reveal their strategy, they're just giving another open
The
door
whole
towards the
fog of war
attackers.
thing,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
so
yeah.
at this point, we kind of just have to trust them, hope things are going well. And honestly, from my perspective, we saw that the anti-cheat came out and said there's no vulnerability here. Now, of course, they could be saying that just to say that as a public face, but also I think that like these are two of the biggest players in all of Apex. It could have been something that, again, was lying dormant in their PC that he hacked them like a month before, got them through like a phishing email or something. And will that happen on LAN PCs? Probably not.
Well, so it's interesting that you mentioned that, right? Because we have seen in the past that they go to online, like even though they're on LAN, like they're still technically an online private
True.
Remember, what was it during champs or was it LAN 2 finals? There was one game that like there are rumors about a potential like
Yeah.
DDoSing situation. And so the fact that like one makes you wonder if maybe they should bring back the private servers. That's a conversation for a whole nother day, right? But it's at least now like the online portion is over as long as they do. Again, I think they should bring back the private servers. If not, you could potentially see this on LAN, and that'd be wild.
And it's weird too because it's like it's a different scenario than some other esports where you're talking about like other games that have fully private servers that are going to be fully away from the game. I mean, Apex, you got 60 players. It's really tough to do because there are just so many of them and hard to have those dedicated resources. So I don't know if they'll decide to maybe get those private servers or play it in a different way. But I mean, you definitely can't play it like 5 hours behind. Like that could be an option where like okay, we'll push it back the stream 5 hours. It won't be live and then like you'll know a little bit later, but like I don't know if that's a great solution.
So there's one thing that I realized that I forgot to bring up before we went live on this, but you and I have had this conversation, and it's interesting. Well, in the past we have. It's interesting to me how we're in yet another situation where the biggest problems right now in Apex all lead to Storm Point. And I don't want to say that it was map specific was to like where they were able to have the access or nothing, but it is kind of coincidental that I think that and it was back-to-back games in games 3 and 4. Let's not forget games 1 and 2, and there were rumors that there was, like, some, like, lagging issues on the server or people, like, kinda noticing some drops at the beginning, wondering if that was when Destroyer 2009 was, like, trying to access the PCs or whatever. But the fact that nothing happens until Storm Point, we've had all these problems on Storm Point, all the restarts on Storm Point. Can we just get a new map, please? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm a Stormpoint hater. I'm not gonna lie. My girlfriend, it's like her favorite map of all time, and I'm like, no. As much as I've played it, like I absolutely hate it. But I mean, it could be Stormpoint just in general. That I mean, I don't know if this would affect it, but Stormpoint has just the most crap on it, right? It has like spiders. It's got prowlers. It's got flyers in the air. It's got tridents. So I don't know if that is affecting it in some way, or just like I know they've had issues with like the out of bounds stuff before. So
Right?
it could be just something as simple as that, but. I don't know. I honestly think that like we do need a new map, but the new map that they made in Broken Moon was kind of designed for pubs.
So, what's your thoughts then as far as because I've seen like the back and forth on Twitter, and I definitely have my take. But I would like to get your take in regards to like them having this private server. If, if they had their way, nobody would have known about it until it went live what last night, and nobody would have known that it was a pre-recorded broadcast. You know what I mean? It was because of a leak from one of like Twitter site or something like that that word kinda got out, and then all the pros started posting their results as well, right? Like, uh, I for me, let me get your take first. What's your thoughts as far as them having to do it in private?
I think it makes sense, and I think it's good to do it just in this scenario because, like you said, I mean, we have regional finals, or excuse me, we have grand finals so close away that you need to get those teams qualified and need to get it done. So,
Mhm.
kind of avoiding the risk of having that problem happen again, I think it's smart to do. But at the same time, if you know there's 20 Apex teams with 60 players that pretty much all of them stream and have very high viewer counts. If you know none of them are playing Apex at the same time, something is
Right.
something is probably up, right? Like
Yeah. I mean, I do know definitely, like, even after the first kind of rumors went around, everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, like, no one is streaming, huh?" And one thing that I couldn't help, but kind of, I guess, like, chuckle about a little bit, kind of watching how everything unfolded, and hopefully in, like, post-production, we can pull up the post from, ALGS Global Series. I'll just read it here, like, real quick. From ALGS itself, following last week's event, Respawn has rolled out updates to the game, and with those protections in place, here's what you can expect from tonight's ALGS NA Finals. In addition to our confidence and response fixes, we also wanted to give players additional peace of mind by hosting the ALGS NA Finals privately and broadcasting the matches after the fact. That means you are watching the result of those matches that were held privately. We'll resume the NA Regional Finals with Match 3 in partnership with EA Respawn Anti-Cheat and Security. We all reviewed the data, are confident that there were no impacts to the first two matches of the NA Regional Finals, so those scores will stand. Tonight's matches were played on the Season 20 patch to ensure competitive integrity. I think that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. And consistency across all the regional qualifying series for Split 1 playoffs in Los Angeles, right? So for me, if I can be honest with you, the one sentence that I'm like, I really have a problem with here, Llama, is like We wanted to give our players additional peace of mind by hosting the ALGS NA finals privately, right?
Yeah.
Because each and every one of those players wanted to stream the game. They know that that's content. So just be open and honest with us. We did not want that. Don't put that on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
players. You know what I mean? Because then that just makes you think, what else are we covering? Like, it kind of comes back to the whole, like, I understand this whole like fog of war thing. You can't give up too much
Yeah, yeah.
information, but when can we just be honest with the folk? You know what I mean?
It's tough. And I think it's also tough for the players specifically that like outside of like TSM and some of the other players that not only have like a super large audience but also like make a lot of winnings from Apex, like there are players that like this I mean it is literally their living that like
Mhm.
on match days they probably get like 2,000 viewers versus like their regular streaming just like ranked they're getting like 200. So it's
Right.
not only a good opportunity for them to again build that content, send it out to others, but also earn themselves money, make themselves a living in case Apex does not work out. So I think at the same time, I kind of see both sides that it's like, it's unfair to the players that you're not letting them get this stream, that you're not letting them do this on their own, but
Mhm.
also you don't want that to happen again. You don't want the whole entire lobby to crash, and you definitely don't want to delay grand finals.
And last thing that you would want is after telling people, hey, we're starting to get security under wraps for Destroyer 2009, once again, to show the
Exactly.
entire world that that ain't the truth. Um, which makes me wonder though, remember, oh God, when did this happen? I feel like it's like less than a year ago when there were some problems with the server and it was somebody that was like DDoSing the servers because the Titanfall servers were so like infested with the cheaters and stuff. Is this the downfall of Apex where, like, the cheating becomes literally so rampant, we're seeing it in ALGS that it just starts plaguing everything else, and we don't have a fix for months or, like, I don't wanna be the doomsday guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
but is this all kinda sounding familiar? You know what I mean?
It kind of is, and I can tell you as a player that put my life and soul into Titanfall 2 before I was an Apex player that, the cheating wasn't as bad on consoles, I will say, which is kind of the same thing with Apex, that it's a
Right.
little bit more accessible on PC, but it was still this problem that I mean, it was more of like you had weapons kind of like the Kraber in Titanfall 2 that can like one shot, so like it was a little bit easier to kind of make those cheats where Apex, the time to kill is a little bit higher, but even then, it is something where, like you said, the community of Titanfall 2 very very close knit, which is exactly what I think is like for Apex 2. That you have this ability to keep this community together, and when you piss the community off, they are going to strike back, and that's exactly what the Titanfall 2 player did. So I think they need to get things under wraps, and I think they need to do it quicker rather than later because I think Apex, the community is already unhappy about it.
So, what's the do you feel like more transparency is a fix, or do you feel like they're already doing a good enough job with that?
It's tough. I mean, it's the same thing of like again, I kind of see both sides where like we have to trust them. We need to trust our devs and know that they're doing a good job. But at the same time, like we just had to postpone one of the biggest events in history of Apex, and like there is still like cheaters just running rampant in ranked, and maybe that is a fault kind of the players too. I know at some points like Hideouts was saying like some players just don't even go to the effort to ban anymore or even give us that information, and people are always going to try to cheat. So the wider berth of knowledge that the devs can have and that the team of Hideouts does have, it's easier for them to stop things. So if the players are a little bit more cooperative too, that's how I see it, is how they can fix it too.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially I mean, I try to not, like, especially when I'm talking about the situation, I try not to, like, be one of those guys that you see across social media just, like, bashing the devs, saying that they don't
Yeah, yeah.
care, they're not doing a good job, right? One thing that I will say, and then I do think we at least do a, quick preview of ALGS if you want, or maybe we can save that for next week since we do have a few weeks until Los Angeles. Um
Yeah.
but I think one of the big things that leads to hideouts getting so much more flack than everyone else, and I wanna get your opinion on this real quick, is it's like the whole, like, and I felt this about multiple gaming communities and people who are in like, positions usually associated with the studio, whether it's working with the
Yeah.
security team, with hideouts, working as, like, a community manager. Once you start, like, as a social presence, the way Hideout has, start blending work with outside of work, then that allows other people to start then in turn blending that experience, when you see Respawn,
Yeah.
I love the fact that Hideouts does his whole DJing thing.
Yeah.
Like, look, you're allowed to have hobbies outside of work, right? But when you're using this platform that's built that's supposed to be about communicating to people about what's going on, about the security and the anti-cheat stuff in your game, and all of a sudden it seems like some days we're seeing more about your personal life, like
Yeah.
you poop where you eat. Sometimes you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it was brought on by himself because that's not what I'm saying, but I do think this is one of those situations that because of how things have gotten handled, the perception gets skewed so worse in the other direction, you know?
I feel like it's tough too. I mean, I will say it's the first thing. Like, it is his prerogative. He is allowed to use his social media however he wishes, and like you, I think it's awesome that he has other hobbies, he has other things, and honestly, like it's kind of crazy that like he's been super successful in those things. Like, credit
Mhm.
to him, been doing good in DJing, been doing good in music stuff, but it is really tough when you built your whole account and it's kind of imagine like a streamer that kind of only plays one game and they get famous off that game and then they just kind of switch games and then like half their audience is like, well, okay, maybe we'll follow that, but we don't really know where to go. And it's tough to kind of find that line as somebody that follows him, that like you don't know actually how much like he's working on Apex versus how much he's working on that, but if he's posting more on that, you're like, oh, he's putting more effort into that. So it's a hard thing to kind of look at from an outside perspective because again, it's his prerogative, it's his life, and he's doing amazing things, but at the same time, like I don't know what the answer is. Like, I don't know if maybe you make two separate accounts. I don't know if you have like an account solely based on like the Apex side, and then you have an account on the other side. But then maybe you deal with the fact that like, oh, you have a big social media following over here. So I really don't know what the fix is.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's kind of I feel like there's always that work-life balance. It's like one of the really tough things to do, right? But I don't want that to be a discredit to what, Hideouts and the rest of the squad does, because I do think they are definitely working a lot harder than they've been getting credit for, especially these last, like, week and a half.
Yeah,
Um, with that being said, though, when do you think the next Final Fantasy bundle is gonna come out to, like, make up for all the overtime? Like
yeah,
2,
that's true.
3 months? No.
Yeah, yeah, next month. That's good.
But no, but look, we'll cover more at the ALGS. It's like they literally just covered
Yeah,
actually, let's talk about NA regional finals since it did get done, because I need to talk with the script writers.
yes.
TSM struggling, and then all of a sudden there's an offline stream and TSM
Yeah,
just
they're just
does
doing good.
returns to TSM. Like, what are we doing here? What is this?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I also think it's like they got helped out by this new patch that's coming into the season where Bang got a little bit of nerfs, and there's actually a lot of people. I've been hearing rumors that Seer might be back. That we've been seeing a ton of Seer in scrims. We've been seeing him used instead of Bloodhound and kind of not using Bangalore as much anymore, which I hated Seer, hated him with a passion. I knew when he came out, he had the extra damage and the stun. It was horrible, especially when Arenas was out. But I always like a spice up in the meta, and I think TSM were not good in the meta that started us out in this season and are better on this patch.
I don't know, man. I just want to switch up in the story, bro.
Yeah.
I really do. We'll talk about that more in the future weeks. And that's no like discredit to Hal. And I met Verholz out at Midwest Fest. Like, honestly, he's like a really dope kid, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I really like the squad over at the stands sometimes drive me a little nuts. I think that's anybody in esports. Um, but yeah, I do think that this land is going to be really good. But speaking of lands, Llama, we did just get done with Masters Madrid. Unfortunately, we didn't get to kind of do like a mid-tournament breakdown because we were off last week. But I think that's okay because we kind of get to look at Masters Madrid as a whole here. And we got just a little bit of time. So I want to get kind of at least your first impressions, and then we'll really dig in as far as VCT Masters Madrid.
I mean, first impressions, North America's better than EU. Suckers! Woo! Let's go, North America. But no, I actually think like the Carmine core fall flat in their face was a little bit sad to watch that they did get beaten out at the end of the day. I think North America exceeded expectations, and I think that, Pacific is starting to become I wouldn't say that like this isn't unknown, and I think you predicted this, and other people are saying that like everybody knows they have great teams over there. They have
Mhm.
literally Gen G, who's just a really famous organization in all of esports. So I think Pacific is starting to be possibly inching themselves up towards that second spot on overall Valorant.
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely feel like one, I want to know what Fnatic looks like going into
Yeah.
this season
Oh
because
yeah.
I do feel like we missed that at the LAN. I'm gonna be honest. I know Fnatic didn't look the best in EMEA kickoff. Kind of thinking about the fact that EMEA had none, but I do got to agree, man. Pacific looked great.
Yep.
Also, got to keep in mind Gen G and Paper X came from the same bracket in
Yeah.
their kickoff. The third team that was in that bracket was RRQ, which was another one of those like kind of meme team
Yeah.
last year, like bottom half of the division, and they looked pretty solid against this Gen G squad that rolled a lot of other competitors. So I'm gonna be really excited to see what Pacific looks like this year. Your boy gets
Oh
up
yeah.
in the morning, hits the gym, so I'll be able to watch kind of games to and from, as well as those still should be going on when I get back. So Pacic's gonna be fun to keep an eye on this year.
It's gonna be fun, and I honestly think that like Gen G has a lot of improvement to possibly they have a larger ceiling. I feel like that they had a
Agreed.
couple players that didn't have any stage experience at all. They literally just picked up a player from ranked, and they're like, okay, we'll take him on our team. So I think when you look at the finals specifically, Gen G was looking pretty crazy. That like they were going into grand finals as I thought they were going to win like 3-0 or 3-1, especially when they go in winning the first map when Icebox is the last map of the series. And then I think it just comes down honestly to stage experience. And when you talk about a player like Tens who is starting to get up there, he is probably, I would say, top 5 Valorant players of all time. And he's starting to get up there to be one of the esport names that like it isn't like a faker level yet, but like it's starting to get there.
Yeah, but I do gotta say, if we're to give credit to Sentinels, man, it really felt like it was when Zekin
Yeah.
really caught his stride. And again, it's not to discredit anybody else in the Sentinels, right? I mean, John QT, his first time like on the main stage in that IGL role, had a good performance as well, right? The Sentinel roster kind of across the board looked amazing, but um, I'll say it. I'm sorry. I was a Sentinels hater. I know before everything all started. So yeah, I gotta own up to that one. But this team looks really really good here, and knowing kind of like you said for Gen G that they haven't reached their ceiling. I definitely feel like the Sentinel squad still has some room to improve here as well, even as your Masters Madrid champs.
I think so too. I think they have a lot of new players. I think honestly, even though as much as I was talking up tens, he also was on a little bit more of a kind of I don't know how to describe it, like an it's Timmy type of switch where he went from professional play back to content and then back to professional play. But at the same time, I think that they have a lot of improvement to do, and they are possibly in the best region to do it. That we talk about Valorant for North America has some of the best names. You talk about Loud is still going to be in there to definitely put you back on the ropes. So that improvement ceiling versus maybe other regions might be better because you're playing those better teams.
Let's not forget NRG wasn't here for NA either.
That's true.
Leviathan wasn't here
Yeah.
earlier either. So like if you really do believe that like iron sharpens iron, I think the fact that NA looked the way that they did, the only region that sent 2 teams to that final 4, I think as a Valorant as an NA fan, you gotta be or I can't even say NA, as an Americas fan for Valorant, you gotta be excited what this new season's gonna look like. And
Oh yeah.
yo, Llama, guess what? We only gotta wait like a week and a half. I think it's like the 5th, 6th, something like that in April. I think Pacific is the first one to start, so we don't have long for that. But do you feel that there were any teams that you felt like maybe walked away with a little bit of disappointment from Masters Madrid?
I definitely think it's KC. I think everybody had high hopes for them. I think I even had them probably making top 4, if not going towards somewhere in the top 3 range. And it was just surprising that I don't know if it was just their matchups that they played. Like they looked a little bit worse on their final match day. And I think you were even like hyping them up a ton that like you were hoping you picked both EMEA teams to try and move on to that top 4.
Yeah. EMEA let me down last time I ever bet on EMEA. Well, except for in Rocket League. I'll bet on EMEA and Rocket League. But I do gotta say, when you do look at EMEA, both of their losses for both Team Heretics and Carmine Corp and Swiss were to Paper X and Sentinels. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're losing it to the top 3 teams. That's where you can start talking about the luck of the draw and the whole, is this where we start blaming the format? Oh my goodness. Uh, no, I do think like my only overreaction would probably be Team Heretics, and it's only just because of the fact that I think people were expecting this squad to at least be able to steal one. but it's strictly it's just that it is a overreaction because you did lose. I mean, you put up a good fight to Sentinels in your opening matchup. I mean, the one map that wasn't close, you won the 11-5 on Sunset. So other than that, it was 11-3, 11-9. So that looked good there. And then even a PaperX, man, like what are you gonna do when PaperX is just hitting their stride? I mean, it's tough. I don't think there's too many overreactions. I really hope that all of these rosters stick together. We don't see anyone trying to make any preseason moves thinking that they need to close any gaps.
And honestly, to take the surprise the other way, I was honestly surprised how good PaperX did. That like they got into this
Without
top
Jing.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with this kind of new roster adaptation, they were talking for all of Masters Madrid. I mean, even in the early interviews, they were like, "Oh, we have so much to fix. We are being carried by individual performances. We don't have a comprehensive team plan. We're just kind of running it down and hoping for the best." And luckily, those individual performances, I think, shaped the ability to form a game plan where they started to build this aggressive style, started to catch teams off guard, and now they have that chance to, I hope, stick together and keep that game plan going.
I think PaperX is one of those squads that's going to benefit once Clove releases, man.
Yeah.
The new kind of interactive ways to play aggressive with the new agent. When I saw it, it just screamed PRX to me.
Yeah.
So could be something for them to even further kind of shift up the meta. But yeah, I'm gonna be kind of excited to see as far as the rest of that season. I think it's hard to say other surprises outside of that because Loud. I think everyone was pretty well expecting.
Yeah.
Again, I think PaperX. I think people were expecting maybe top 4, but not in the
Yeah.
style that they did. Like, they definitely, like, really showed that they, like, carved their place. I do kinda I gotta say I was surprised that Edward Gaming weren't able to take at least map off of Loud,
Yeah.
but I think that was just a little bit of the experience from Loud kind of showing through as well.
Yeah, I think Cloud and Sentinels both kind of showed their experience towards the end of the tournament. And
Yeah.
for Sentinels, I honestly like I gotta say, like, the way they were able to adapt not only in that grand final series, but talk about your best map, losing it 13-5 in back-to-back series, and then going into the grand finals, you would think your confidence was hurt. And I know Tens was like dealing with like his girlfriend or something was like in the hospital, or there was a whole deal with that, and they said like their stage performance wasn't as good because of that. And there are those personal factors when you're in the in-person events, but I just think to go onto Icebox, a map that literally nobody expected you to win, and only drop one round on your offensive
Yeah.
side to win the entire tournament is insane to me.
I think that's where, you and I talk about the big old scary word in esports, which is momentum, man. Once for the early part of the series, even when you look at Bind, which Sentinels technically took, through the first 3 maps, Gen G was just jaw jacking, jaw jacking, jaw jacking. Then you got to Split, and I think they were expecting to kind of see Sentinels roll over a bit on Split.
Yeah.
And instead, Sentinels started feeling good, and they started talking back and backing it up
Hmm.
as well. By the time they got to I don't think we saw the cameras pan over the Gen G side talking once on Icebox. It was a real big turnaround.
And it was huge, just that confidence factor that like we said, it can change in a moment. That momentum, like you said, that scary word that they got a hold of, and it's because they had some of the stage experience as well. That's what I was a little bit concerned of for Gen G was like going into a game number 5, you have all of the pressure on you. I mean, we know it from esports that like, okay, so what, you played all those other ones, none of those games matter because it all comes down to this last one. And when everybody in the audience, well, not everybody, like 80% of the audience is against you, so what, you can say, okay, there's white noise, whatever, you can't really hear the audience, it makes a difference. And when there are so many Sentinels fans there, when you don't have that stage experience, I feel like they just got disheartened a little bit.
Definitely think we're gonna be seeing this Gen G squad back for sure.
Yeah.
I gotta ask though, after watching this, watching where it was the 8 teams, is what when we get to our next finals, that's 3 per team, right, in Shanghai?
Yeah. Yep, I'm pretty sure.
Do you Is there a team in any region that you feel is probably like most likely to put themselves in and like really make some noise heading to Shanghai?
I think it's tough to say for sure. I mean, we'll have to watch for roster moves, I think is the most important thing here, if any of the teams do make it. But I'm thinking NRG. I mean, you were
Yeah.
mentioning them. They are a staple of North America, a staple organization as well. I think they just barely missed the cutoff. And It is a little bit weird. I know we were talking about this kind of on the last podcast that what do you do if you're a team that didn't make it to Masters Madrid? Are you just sitting there waiting, watching, or are you scrimming the teams that also didn't make it? And is that enough to, like you said, iron sharpening that iron? We'll see if NRG, I think if they're still in form, they have that ability to work it back. But I know also that like Sentinels, they got just invaluable experience from going to Masters Madrid and invaluable practice against those other teams.
Should be interesting. I think NRG is definitely going to be a team to watch out for. For me, I think it's probably between them, and I had mentioned them earlier. I'm going to be really intrigued to see the bounce back from Fnatic. You
Yeah.
feel like they're going to have a point to prove during this first leg of this regular season heading into Shanghai, right? So, um, other than that, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on Navi, but that's just because Artist is like
Yeah.
number 2 on my fraud watch behind Ye. Which we're definitely gonna get to Ye later. Not today though. We won't have time. We've kind of been busy on these two. We still have hot and cold to get to, and not only do we have hot and cold to get to, we still have to talk about RLCS. We're recording this on Wednesday. Literally by this time tomorrow, we're already gonna be into the start of Swiss. It's crazy to think that RLCS Copenhagen is already upon us here. So,
Yeah.
Llama,
Yeah.
give me your first initial thoughts heading into major number 1.
I think it's gonna be fun. I think that's the most important thing, and obviously it's gonna be on home soil in Copenhagen for the EU squad. So I think that not only are they gonna get the buff of having the crowd there, but also they have been the most dominant region in the past. So we've talked about it so much before. Like, will this dynasty continue of the Carmine Corps, of Zen, and all of these other big name players? And I think that it'll be really exciting to see what these other regions bring to the table because not only North America, but some of these smaller regions that, like we said, kind of have these different playstyles, Q, that they bring to the table. You get as a pro player to experience all these different ones. And sometimes that can honestly bring, kind of like we were talking in Valorant with Paper X, it can bring a new flavor and a new shock towards those other teams.
It's gonna be interesting with I feel like despite Carmine Corp's like dominance that we've seen in EU, which
Yeah.
I think even if you're on the most North American copium, I think we can all agree that EU is the best region. If I mean, really, if we're being honest, France should be its own region, and EU should still probably be able to bring teams that can still compete. If
Yeah.
we're being real, um, but I think outside of that, I do think that this is pretty wide open. I think that NA is sending a team in G2, which I think a lot of people do believe can
Yeah.
compete at the highest of levels. I think a lot of people also still have similar ideas about Gen G. I think it's just a matter of which Gen G shows up. But if it is peak Gen G, I think they could also put themselves top 6, maybe even top 4, right?
Hmm.
But I think even when you look outside of the NA EU debate, I mean, I think this Falcon squad's probably the best MENA squad that we've ever seen at a major.
Yeah.
Um, Outside of like its season 6 Chiefs, I would say this power squad, probably the best OCE squad we've seen. And then when you even think about the South American squad with both Furia and Complexity, both of them have the potential to be able to put up some damage as well. So I feel like this is going to be a pretty wide open tournament. I think it should be really fun to watch how Swiss breaks down. Unfortunately, there are going to be a couple of squads that are going to have to go 0-3. I think realistically, they're probably going to be from minor regions, at least one of
Yeah.
them, just because the experience isn't quite there. But I think at the top, I don't think there's a lot that's really been decided yet.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, and I think it'll once again come down to the draw. That like I think you're talking about those. There are those big names. If you run into G2 or if you run into any of the EU squads, it's probably going to be a harder series for yourself. So I think it depends on draw, but I also think that Swiss is a little bit weird as well. You talk about momentum, that M word we always go back to, but
Big scary word.
oh, it's big and it's scary, especially in Rocket League where like when you're playing on Swiss, you could go in with so much confidence and then you face a team in round number 2, you lose all your confidence and then all of a sudden you play different for the rest of it. So I think it really depends not only who you play, but when you play them as well.
I know I'm there's gonna be a couple of rounds or a couple of matches in the first round that I'm gonna be really looking out for. I feel like for me, Power versus Gen G going
Ooh.
to be a big one. And then the other one, where are they at? Rule 1 versus Gentlemates, and I think they
Oh.
are unfortunately oh, no, they're not the same time. One of them's gonna be at 10, AM Eastern Time, the other one going to be at noon, so I'm gonna be trying to catch both of those for sure.
Definitely wanna watch all these, and I think that those
Well,
gotta be the most
I wanna
important.
watch all of them, Llama.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna watch all of them too, but sometimes we don't get to watch all of them. But no, what I was gonna say, my match I'm actually looking towards is Complexity versus, Team Vitality. I think
That
that's
should be
gonna
a
be
good
a
one
good one
too.
as well. I think all these opening matches, they have chances for sparks to fly for the minor regions to bring it towards this first stage game. At the same time, I think that we'll have to see what the kind of shakeup is, and of course, it all comes with the flow of Swiss that you win, you get to keep yourself going, and you'll probably face a harder team, and if you lose, then you probably don't.
I'm gonna give you a spicy take, and it ain't even time for hot or cold yet.
Oh,
You ready for it?
I don't know.
Car Carmine Corp ain't sweeping their first series
Hmm, okay. That
against Limit. I think Limitless takes a game.
okay. I could see it
I
just
think
because
it's
it's the
because
first.
I think it's a trap game. I think it's a trap series. I think Carmine Corp's gonna come in. We get to warm up against SSA. You know what I mean? And SSA is gonna come in with a point to prove. I don't think they win the series, but imagine if they do. I'm losing my mind. I kind of wish I was gonna be over on the African gaming stream where they're gonna be tuning in on that. I will be watching it though for sure.
Yeah. Gotta be watching it, and I think, like you said, there are gonna be these weird trap games, and it not only matters, like we said, for Swiss, your opponent, it is gonna be a little bit tough for Limitless. I don't think anybody is expecting them to go in to win, but like you said, they could come in with a fury, they could come in with the ability to take a couple games off, and those games that you take off actually really matter. The game differential will be a big decider that you kind of can't control your destiny in which teams you get to play, but you can control your own record. That if you start to take wins, if you're losing and you're winning while doing it, if you're taking games off your opponent, and if you're winning while not losing, if you're taking 3-0s, it's going to be a lot easier route through Swiss than if you're doing the opposite.
Yeah, you get to kind of control your destiny, right? If you're finding some success, there's a good chance in the next round you're gonna be playing as someone who hasn't found as much
Correct.
success, and it kind of continues to accumulate throughout the day. If you're
Mhm.
going into round number 5 and that 1 seed, you're gonna be going against someone who's like sweating in the fact that they're still alive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, which is honestly is one of the things that I do really love about Swiss. I like that we saw that VCT Masters did Swiss for like the first part of it. Kind of wish they would have done like a round differential, kind of like we see for gamer differential instead of a random draw. We're not going backwards. We're talking RLCS. Question for you though, Llama.
Yeah.
Looking at the 16 teams that we have showing up to Copenhagen, take away Carmine Corp and give
Okay.
me a winner.
Oh, I I think I would lean more towards EU, but at the same time, like, I don't know, G2 have just looked so good. Albeit from the last regional, I thought they were just playing like they had already won, so they were playing a little bit slower. But I honestly think G2. I think I'm gonna say G2. I think I would lean more EU, but I think they're carrying just so much momentum. They're gonna also have that like the G2 effect that like G2 is kind of a European esports organization. They're in Europe for League of Legends. Like they're gonna have fans there no matter what.
I think G2 is definitely a good pick, but I think mine that I'm going to be watching out for is still Team Vitality. You think
Yeah.
kind of back to the majors. I mean, what in 2 of the 3 single eliminations, who beats them? Carmine Corp. We talked about it kind of several episodes in the past. It's all about when do you play Carmine Corp? That's when you're going out. So, if you happen to catch Carmine Corp, off their game, because I don't think it's about Vitality being the better land team. I really do think when you look at Tira, Toe, Rise, like this squad just it feels like they're ready to complete the perfect split, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think everyone's looking towards Carmine Corp. I definitely feel like if it's not them, Team Vitality. But if I could tell you what I would love to see would be a non-EU or NA team win it. I don't care who it
Yeah.
is. Um, this Falcon squad with TRK, Kalirs, and Ruas, um, just might do it. They play fast. The only thing that I wonder about this Team Falcons squad is how they'll look against EU because they are that much quicker. I don't know how much Mina like Mina of Rocket League you
Some.
watch, but they're like they're clearly the fastest team on the
Yeah.
pitch every time they step out there. I don't think that's gonna be the case when they start playing these EU squads.
And it's tough, right? To get that experience, you don't have that experience against not only the different play style, but against all these different players that could be a little bit higher of that skill gap. It just reminds you of something. I was watching some streamer last night, and some like gold player goes into his chat, and he's like, "Everybody seems faster than me in ranked," and he's just like, "No, that's not an actual thing. They're just like challenging the ball better and using their boost better." But I digress. Though I think it's going to be a really fun event, just in general. Like we said, it's got chances for the storylines of amazing things of like you have these minor regions that are coming in, you have G2 who's kind of riding off this wave, you have the perfect split as a possibility. There's so many good things to watch out for.
So we've talked a lot about the dominance of Carmine Corp, right? So what type of result would you have to see Carmine Corp to like walk away with to consider it a failure after having the perfect split? Because let's be honest, it's hard to win every event you're in,
Yeah.
right? So is it just simply not being in grand finals? Is it not making top four? Would it only be considered a failure if Carmine Corp somehow doesn't get out of Swiss? What you thinking, Llama?
I mean, if they so what I'd say from my perspective and from the viewers outside perspective, I would say not winning the event or not making grand finals is a letdown. Now for the players, it's obviously I think making it out of Swiss is the goal for every single team. You can't look forward. You have to look into the present right now. That you have to say, okay, we're not going to be going to grand finals if we don't win these Swiss games. But at the same time, I think everybody expects them to be this best team, to be this team that's going to contest for it. So at least if they're like, if they lose in grand finals in some fantastic way, I think people could be okay with that. But like, if they don't even make it to grand finals, if they don't even make it out of the Swiss, it would be a huge disappointment, I would say.
Swiss, I think, would definitely be a big disappointment. I feel like Championship Sunday is
Yeah,
like the cutoff,
yeah.
right? Because we've seen, especially, I mean, Vatira's had this run, Ferris had this run, and now they're together underneath Carbine Corp. I feel like Sunday is the cutoff. I think for sure Swiss. It's definitely interesting though, because I also feel like again, after Swiss, it goes a single elimination. Let's just say you play against Vitality in round number one and it goes the distance to seven. You have a banger series, 3 or 4 overtimes, and then Vitality goes on to win the whole thing. Then maybe you don't feel so bad about not making Championship Sunday. So I feel like maybe kind of dependent on who you lose to and their performances. But I feel like Championship Sunday is like bare minimum for them.
I think that's what it has to be. And I think for a lot of these teams, they have high expectations, which is always what it is, right? The EU and NA teams, they always come in with very, very high expectations. And then all of the minor regions, any other things they get along with that they're already here. They're like, okay, we already won, right? The more games we can take off, the more things we can do, the better it is going to be. So I think those storylines are going to be awesome to watch for. And like you said, Q, it's just a really nice time to be an esports fan. I mean, not only do we have the Rocket League stuff going on, we just finished Valorant. I mean, I know you're getting into League a little bit more. We've got League finals this weekend for North America. Cloud9, the super team, that's supposed to be the super team, plays Team Liquid on Saturday, and then it plays the winner. The winner of that will play FlyQuest on Sunday. So much is going on. I'm super blessed to be an esports fan.
Man, yeah, it's a good time here. I'll tell you what, though, here in a couple of weeks, we're gonna be down bad because like
Yeah,
it's gonna be in
I'm sad.
between everything, bro. Like once RLCS is done, we're gonna have what? Oh, because RLCS finishes as well as League of Legends major finishes this weekend,
Yeah.
right? And then we're gonna have well, I guess VCT is only like 2 weeks. So we do have VCT starting up, but no ALGS for another 3 weeks. And then when that's done, I don't even know when that starts back up. So we're kind of in
Yeah.
that like mid-split sort of lull before summer. Have you been watching much as far as like NA challengers? I know we talked about Valorant earlier, but I was curious.
Some.
Yeah.
I fill my time with what I can. So if there's challengers on, I've been getting into learning Rainbow Six. I've casted Rainbow Six a ton, but watching some Rainbow Six, getting into that as well. I mean, all the esports kind of hitting right at this point, and then like you said, we'll have just a little bit of that break. So it'll be nice to see kind of these other leagues, and I especially like not only like college is starting to get towards its peak playoffs. So like even when there are those break periods, there still will be some time to kind of fill it in between, which is the nice thing about esports is like it's always going on.
I don't know about you, man, but it is springtime. You know one of
It is.
my least favorite things about springtime?
What?
Other than the pollen, because the pollen's gonna kill me one of these days, I'll tell you
It
what.
is.
Um, is the fact that the weather does this
Oh,
fluctuation thing. It gets hot and then it gets cold.
yeah. That's
It
crazy.
Yeah, it's not I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the weather, but you know what I am a fan of? The fluctuation in our picks right here on the podcast. It's time for hot and cold. Me and Q gonna probably be bold here for our picks. A little bit update on last week.
No,
Well,
we can
the
just go
week.
right into this week's hot and cold. We don't have to review.
Yeah, we can look at last week real quick, but so again, we missed last week. We did have a couple picks from the previous week that did get locked on in. I will say that according to the wording of one of those, we were looking at the Frost Monday repeat for one of those picks. They did do it on 129. That championship run has ended. They actually
Yep.
lost this past Monday. The four-time streak is over. Now they still got second
They
overall with this.
almost five-peated, dog,
It,
like
it, it is something crazy we can talk about that. Like, it's the first time ever in Frost history that that has happened. But not
yeah.
only that, there's 60 plus teams signing up every single week that they got to burn through. That is one of the most consistent teams I've ever seen.
Yeah, and what's crazy is I feel look, you and I have talked about it a lot, man. They just need to get together for Split 2 because they've been running here. Like, who else are you gonna find right now that's going to make you feel like your chemistry fits together than the three of y'all? I don't know if we gotta bring in a moderator in to kind of help manage the things in the background on game day or whatever it is, but this squad has shown that the ceiling is quite high. I would feel like this team could be a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me. Remember when we would see the 3 players from Hey Bro kind of on different
Yeah.
teams, and then they kinda started playing together all of a sudden. It feels like that, but they aren't sticking together, and it makes me sad.
It is, and I understand it that like they kind of come from a little bit different organizations. I mean, Scythe is still kind of in that picture where Scythe is still playing with Pigeon. So I think all four of those players absolutely fantastic. But just to see that not only like they're having this success, but like every time we've interviewed them or every time Pigeon comes in to talk, he's just like, yeah, we're just turning comms off. We're
Yeah.
just like having fun. We're having fun and with our friends, which is really, really nice to hear. But I think that team would be really good if they stuck together. We'll have to see if they do for the following one, but they are no longer the defending Frost champions. We'll talk about that in my later pick. But the first hot and cold queue I do have for you is going to be going still towards Rocket League. We're looking towards the big major in front of us. And my question is actually on North America and G2. And will they make it out in the top five? So either 0 losses or 1 loss in the Swiss bracket.
Let me take a quick look one more time. Who's their first matchup?
Their first matchup is
Pioneers. That's
Pioneers. Yeah.
dog, I hate to say it because I'm such a Pioneers fan. That's probably a 3-0 though. Quick, delete the VOD. Delete the VOD.
Delete it,
No,
delete it, delete it. Anyways.
no, that's probably a 3-0. Um, which at least puts them ahead in the Swiss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could see them being top 5. So was that hot? That'd be cold, right?
Yeah, cold. Yeah.
Yeah, give me the cold. Give me the lukewarm take.
Okay. We'll go with that. I think that you do bring up a good point that like we said, the game differential matters if they're able to take that 3-0 early, but you never know. I think you as much as I a big fan of the Pioneers and could see them maybe taking a couple of games off.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that wouldn't go because it's similar fashion to like what we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier with the Limitless and Carmine Corp, like kind of a trap game. I do gotta say though, I feel like in Rocket League, because of Swiss, the fact that everyone's used to Swiss, I don't think the trap game is as big as let's say an NCAA tournament where you're in this bracket
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
64. You already know who your next teammate or the next teammate you're facing is after that between these two teams, right? But it should be interesting. But I have a feeling that we're probably gonna be talking quite a bit of RLCS for our hot and cold segment here because I got in trouble for doing a lot of long term things, and that's all we got this next week. Uh,
That's true.
um, so we've been seeing this kind of trend where it's been a lot of EU in these major finals. So my question to you is: will it be 2 EU teams in the grand finals? Hot would, of course, be
Uh,
no. Our cold
but
take
of course.
is yes.
Yeah, so I think when you look at this major specifically, looking at possibly EU as the favorite going into this one, you think that it's pretty easy for them to get two teams into that grand finals. But I also think it's a little bit weird when you have all that pressure on your back that you are that number one team. We saw it with
Right.
Valorant, we saw it with Loud. If you fall in those trap games, if you start losing games and dropping games along the line, and if a team like G2 is very clean, then all of a sudden I feel like it's tough. So I don't think it's going to be two EU teams in the final. I think that it's probably going to be G2, or I honestly think that we could have a lot of surprises here in this major, but I don't think it'll be two EU teams.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I think it's gonna be it should be interesting to see. So, for correction, you think it is or is not
Is
gonna be
not.
2? So you're
No,
taking the
hot
hot
spicy.
pick.
Yes.
I
Yes.
like it, I like it. Alright,
And
alright.
historically, I've been taking cold picks, so we've got to be taking some more hot as time goes on. Come on.
I mean, the numbers are showing you're doing alright, bro,
That's
so I
true.
mean,
That's true.
uh,
Oh, either way. Well, we'll go to my next one, and this one is actually shifting away from Rocket League a little bit and shifting over towards League of Legends, of course,
this
as
is
I
how he
have
built
been
his
doing.
lead.
Yep,
He
this
has
is
me
how
bet
I
on things I have no
no,
idea about.
no, 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 no. We've been telling you to watch some League of Legends. If you guys want to watch some League of Legends, we'll be in the Frost server on Saturday and Sunday with some teaching involved as well. But no, we do have the big North America finals going on this weekend. Cloud9 going in towards the season. Again, we've talked about them kind of some throughout the podcast that they were built to be this like super team, fell flat on their face. You watched that game in a 0-3 this past weekend, and now they play Team Liquid here on Saturday. Of course, the winner not only gets to play in the grand finals for North America, but locks their spot towards the World Championships over at MSI. So the question is just kind of another toss-up game. It is going to be a best of five, but will Cloud9 beat Team Liquid on Saturday? The hot is yes, because they have looked really bad, and the cold is now.
Feel like the hot takes have been killing me lately. So go ahead and give me the lukewarm cold take once again. We're playing it safe in week number 5.
Okay. Q has taken the Team Liquid victory. Of course, like we said, that is going to be, I believe, on Saturday at 1:30 Eastern. So make sure to tune into that one. But, I think we can switch away from League of Legends. We can switch back to yours, Q.
Yeah, we'll be I will I think so. You said that was for Saturday, right?
Yes. Yep.
I'm trying to think of when
Saturday,
Saturday's games
1:30, I think.
aim. I think we still have the last couple games of I think the playoffs start at like 1 or something like that. We'll have to see. I would love to watch it, but I'm gonna be definitely tuned in more to RLCS. Speaking of RLCS
Ooh.
though, first time that we've seen Mina send 2 teams to a major, not a world finals, but a major.
Yep.
They've got Team Falcons, which I think people are really highly rated on. And then there's Rule 1, who's kind of been neck and neck with Falcons. They've been the 2 teams that make it every grand finals. I think a lot of people still have a lot of stock in Rule 1. So my question is, do you think that Mina sends 2 teams and qualifies 2 teams into the top 8?
Oh, this is an interesting one because I think they get one. I think they at least get one, but there's
Getting
so
both of
many.
them would be yes, and that's a hot.
Yeah,
Cold, no.
I think it's gonna be no. I just think there's too many other big names. I think there's too many other big teams that like you're talking about those EU big seeds. We've already talked about G2 and their dominance. So I'm gonna say no. I think they get one, but I don't think they get two.
I feel like it'll really come down to which Khaled do we see. Khaled's usually a
Yeah,
player that's very consistent. The one thing about Khaled's play style that we've seen kind of translates to the team that he's on, they are a little bit slower and more of like a counterattack team, which can work against some teams, especially if they do kind of get some good draws
right.
later on in the Swiss and maybe do play those MENA or not the MENA teams, but do play the OCE teams, the one APAC team, maybe if they play Limitless, right? Like it kind of all depends. But I feel like it's gonna be close. I'm a big Khaled fan.
Yeah,
Kind of one of the MENA goats. Would love to see them get 2. I think that also opens up. I love the storylines that lead to potentially opening up majors to be more than the 16 squads that we
yeah.
got personally.
Yeah, I like that too, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I think a lot of this is one of the strongest majors I feel like we've had. That like a lot of these minor regions or regions that you think that are going to not provide are going to give us really good games. They're going to give us surprises, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a joy to watch here at home. We'll have to be watching all of those games, but I'm sticking with Rocket League, but actually going towards Frost here this next Monday for our Frost number 131. And
Love
it's
it.
the same question, but this time a little bit different of a team to follow. This is, will there be a Frost Monday repeat for from 30 to 31? Again, the team that won on natural substances, Comp, Trent, and Lesser or Russell, whichever you call them, will they repeat it? The hot is yes, the cold is no.
And you're gonna really make me take 3 cold picks this week, huh? Um,
I
and it's
mean,
crazy because I do think that this squad, we've been seeing them do well even during the,
yeah,
like, Llama super team run. Like, they've been one of the teams that's still, like, top 3, top 4. Um, yeah, it should be interesting to see as far as for I mean, this squad, it does feel like we've seen them doing well. I just gotta take the no. I feel like there's gonna be enough other teams, that are kind of running right now that are hungry. It's off season. Teams are gonna wanna try and make some points.
okay.
I'm gonna have to roll with the no on that, but we are gonna stick with RLCS, which we're trying to keep this thing under an hour. I know we're getting close to that, so I'm gonna spend no extra time on our hot and cold. We're sticking with RLCS Major, though. You already know, Llama, in case people are tuning in that don't know. I'm a big SSA guy, man. I do work over there on the main broadcast. Do you think Limitless will win the least amount of games during Swiss? Hot would be no, because I think that's what everyone expects. Cold being yes.
Man, I mean, that means they go 0-3, right?
They'd go 0-3 and they
And they
win lose.
lose. Okay.
They would probably have to lose all of them in sweeps or like they only win a game.
Yeah. I I just think the odds are so much that it's not. That like the possibility of just winning, like if they win one series, it doesn't happen, and like if they're winning games, it probably doesn't happen either. So I'm gonna go with the odds and say that they aren't the team that ends up with the lowest.
All right, gonna take the hot, man. He's going with the spicy picks this week. I
We
love it.
switched
Love
it up. We switched it
We
up.
we did switch it up this week. I do gotta say, I think this is gonna be one of those where, the format will be interesting because you could get like a weird draw. You get like Limitless versus Elevate in like
True.
round 3, and whoever wins that, the other team is the one who loses,
Yeah. Yeah.
the most games, so or wins the least amount of games. So, that should be interesting. Should be. Do you have any more hot and cold for me? I lost track.
I got one more. I got
All right, let's
one
get it.
final
Let's
one.
do
We're
it.
going back to Frost Monday on the 131. And another kind of interesting toss up statistic. This one is going to be about the lead inside of the first played game. So, as we know, there is the game advantage. Technically, we start on game number 2. So, in this game number 2, will the lead ever exceed 2 goals?
Hit me with a really specific one, huh?
Yeah.
Will it exceed 2 goals?
Yes.
In the first game, that's game number 2.
Yes. At any point, the lead is 3.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Is that hot or is that cold? You didn't even tell me.
That's hot. I think.
Not like this, Llama.
Yes, it's hot. It's hot. I checked my notes. It's hot.
Oh man, oh man.
Oh,
So yeah, we talked about, man, a lot going on. Um, we're gonna obviously we have another episode next week, barring no one else getting sick. The whole store got the flu. Only people from my generation will know where that's from. Anyways, we appreciate y'all tuning in here, whether y'all are tuning in live, whether y'all watching over on YouTube. Make sure if y'all are watching on YouTube, though, leave a like, leave a comment. Y'all know the YouTube stuff, man. Remember, those things really are important. Every comment that you guys leave lets YouTube know, hey, they should be sending more people over to watch this thing. I feel like we had a lot of fun. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Number 5 for It's a Vibe, by the way, here, man. Number 6 going to be coming y'all's way next week. We'll be talking about RLCS results. We'll be talking about VCT preview. We'll be talking about some ALGS stuff as well. I'm sure Llama's going to have us talking about League once again. No, we'll be talking about League, of course, as well. So make sure that y'all are tuned in for that. So we catch y'all back over here for the next one, man. Don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard. All right, y'all. That's Llama. I'm Q from the rest of the crew, from the front to the back. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Peace.